Did you know that most entrepreneurs form an LLC for their business way too early? I'm going to help you figure out how to avoid making that mistake because listen, there are a lot of folks out there trying to sell LLCs, and as the head of LLC Attorney, I've seen thousands of people form an LLC, get caught up in the details of that. I think sometimes just to avoid actually focusing on the business and forming an LLC when they did not yet need it. The hard part is understanding when it's too premature, when you should wait. There's business gurus out there who I challenge them to say that they've spoken to more entrepreneurs and thought about this in a more meaningful way than I have. They're pushing LLCs on you because that's how they make their money, I guess, right? So what I'm about to share comes from years of experience of working with entrepreneurs. I'm going to talk about the realities here. I'm not going to sugarcoat things, and we're going to get into the details to tell you when you should move forward and when you should wait. I'm going to be honest. Business gurus are not going to share this with you. You may not need an LLC yet, okay? Your time is an incredibly valuable commodity. It's precious. And if you're focused on the wrong things at the beginning of your business, it ultimately may lead to less business success. So most new entrepreneurs get caught up in legal details that really they should not be focusing on. They should be focusing on, what's my business plan? How am I going to get customers? I actually say to people, I say, imagine all of the technical details. If you're developing a physical product or you're going to be, whatever it is you're doing, consulting business, whatever, the service you're going to be provide. Okay, let's assume you figure all that out because that hopefully you have the experience in that area. How are you going to get a client? That's where I want you to start. I want you to think about, how do I get that first client? Is it going to be through my existing network? And am I going to do paid marketing? What is it I'm going to do? Get that part nailed down. Validate your business model, right? Does the business model make sense? Are you trying to compete in a highly saturated market where the margins really stink anyway, and maybe it's not such a great idea? That's something you really need to think about, right? Even if you could spend money on marketing, I'm gonna get clients by doing paid search. I'm gonna pay Google. I'm gonna do AdWords. I'm gonna do all those sorts of things. Well, how competitive is the marketplace? What makes you different from those other answers that are already out there? And then building the skills you're gonna need to actually generate the revenue, right? How are you presenting yourself? What does your documentation look like? What do your contracts look like? What other requirements are there? Forming an LLC is so incredibly easy, especially on the LLCattorney.com platform. Don't worry about that yet. Figure out those other things first. The truth is, if you're offering a service with low liability and you don't have significant assets to protect, early on, an LLC may be a distraction from what really matters. So there's 3 key scenarios where you should be forming an LLC, okay? When you have assets to protect. If you own a home, if you have significant savings, if you've got other assets, and you can't afford to lose a lawsuit related to this new business, then it's probably a good time to think about forming an LLC very early on in the process here. Number 2, your business starts to have real liability exposure. Certain businesses carry more risk associated with them than others. If you're manufacturing products, right? Not in the design phase, not figuring out how to get that barcode, but you're ready to, okay, we've got it. We're ready to start producing this product, get the LLC formed, right? Because that manufacture and design process, getting the product done, you've got liability exposure that starts right there. If you are going to be entering into contracts, if you need to enter into contracts, that first contract you need to sign, you figured out the business model, you know how it's going to work, and now you need to enter into contract with maybe a independent contractor who's going to be working with you or assisting you, or you want to bring on an employee, those sorts of things. Those all entail liability. So at that point in time, before you sign the deal, before you take on that real world liability, then you form the LLC. The third scenario is that money's not a big deal to you. nor is compliance, right? Making sure that you're following the rules, you get the bank account set up, you got to form the company, you get the bank account set up, there's documentation, operating agreement, these sorts of things. All of these things come and are available with through the LLC Attorney platform, but there is some administrative burden associated with them. But if you're a seasoned entrepreneur, you got these things figured out, you're financially comfortable, very small price, get the LLC set up. And some folks, they use the LLC as really their incubator, right? They've got a single LLC and they say, I'm going to work on some ideas here, maybe sign a couple of contracts, test it out. That is sort of a general company they're using as their own incubator. It's good if you've got some money laying around to get that company started up and explore the new business ventures with that company. So I've talked to a lot of people. They're not good administrative burden. They don't have a lot of money. Those are the ones who hold off, tap the brakes, don't form the LLC yet. But if you've done this before, this is old hat to you, and you've got some money laying around, then forming an LLC early on, not going to hurt you. Just want to make sure that you're not cutting corners early on and undermining the limited liability protection that you're signing up for if you don't know what you're doing early on in that process. What you don't hear, though, is most sort of side hustles, things like, service-based businesses, you're doing consulting, or you're doing, some sort of freelance work, very little liability associated with them. You can address that in a lot of cases with, your terms of service or your agreement, your master services agreement or your SOWs or your contracting agreement, those sorts of things. You're going to be pretty well protected. If you're selling digital products, not a lot of liability. Nobody dies from a SaaS product that didn't deliver on their performance. Issue them a refund, go and improve the product, and then go on your merry way. This brings up a critical question. Many entrepreneurs don't understand what happens if my business does get sued. Even if you have an LLC, most entrepreneurs really don't understand what a lawsuit looks like, how that process proceeds. Having an LLC alone is not enough. That's the first step. It's a first critical step, but then there's a lot of other things you need to do over time. You need to be compliant. If you found this video helpful, hit subscribe and watch my next video on what actually happens when your business gets sued and how to prepare now for it. We're going to walk you through the exact steps you need to take in advance, not in a reactionary way, but in advance to protect yourself against these legal challenges. And I can tell you preparation in this case is going to make all the difference between a minor inconvenience of a threatened lawsuit and really a business ending and perhaps personally, financially destructive outcome.